And we're broadcasting March 2nd, 2011. Sir Timothy Thrapp with Wits Ministries. Take it away, Sir Timothy.
All right. Thank you, Brother Martin. We got an exciting show for all the listeners this evening. We're going to have a video. If it's working properly, we're going to be able to present some pictures on the pyramid discoveries and talk about this next part of the show. Brother Martin, are you there?
Okay. I think I'm here.
Do you think we can show it? Are we showing it now, or how's it going?
I think I can start at any time that you're ready. You basically just want to go ahead and talk over the pictures, right, as they go through.
Yeah. If we can do that, that's what I'd like to do. Now, is there a way for me to be able to see it on Skype also, or do I need to get another computer?
Yeah, you will not be able to see it on Skype. It'll only be on Justin TV.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to turn my other computer on Justin TV earlier, and for some reason I couldn't get it to play anything on Justin TV, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So I guess I just won't be able to. I'll just have to talk about it. I kind of enjoyed seeing the pictures, though. But you talk about any pictures you see, and you feel free to ask me questions, and I'll ask you questions too, and we'll just have a nice discussion about pyramids.
Okay. Well, I think the opening picture I'm going to bring up here is just I think it's a landscape. Looks like green hills and so forth. So this must be the opening of where these pyramids are, maybe.
Do you see a pyramid-looking hill that looks like a pyramid? Because the pyramids, the three that have been discovered there are covered with dirt. They're covered with about 3 to 4 feet of dirt. But toward the base, it's even deeper, maybe 50 feet of dirt or 100 feet of dirt toward the base.
Yeah, these it does look like a big hill that could look like a pyramid. That's right. Now we're seeing a great big hill that looks like a pyramid.
That's the biggest pyramid ever discovered, and this is a new discovery. The brother Sam, he discovered it in 2005. But it just now, this year, finally became accepted because in 2005, everybody thought it was a mountain. And if you look at the pictures, you'll see that even the houses are built partway up on that pyramid. In other words, the city is spread out, and they're building houses. They thought it was a hill, a mountain, because it's covered with dirt. And so that's what's going on there.
Right, I can see that there are some houses on the lower part of the screen. Okay, now we've got looks like some excavation of there's like a post on one side and some excavation on the other. There's two pictures up. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say a few things about pyramids in general, and I will try to tune in again. I think while we're talking, I'll try to tune in on Justin TV over here on the other computer to see if I can see what we're talking about. Actually, I don't want to do it on the same computer. I think it would cause too many problems. But one thing I would like to point out is that all pyramids, if they're aligned properly, with the proper alignment is directly north on one side. It doesn't matter which side. You got 4 sides to most pyramids. You take one side and you put it directly north when you build it, and if it's aligned correctly to magnetic north, it will produce, the pyramid itself produces energy, and that's the free energy device we're talking about. This thing, they actually went up there with instruments and they measured the frequencies and measured the energy. It's an RF energy that's in the ultrasonic. It's just above about 28,000 cycles per second. And all pyramids will put out an energy beam, but some of them show up more modulated than others, or more harmonic than others, if you want to say it that way, more RF energy than others. But all of them put out an energy beam straight out of the top. And that's the reason that the word pyramid exists, because pyramid means fire in the middle, and pyro is fire, and mid is middle. And so from a distance, if the weather conditions are right, you'll see every pyramid shoots off a beam of energy straight up into outer space. And that's basically what's going on there. And it's actually putting out a significant amount of energy. I don't know how much, whether it's tens of watts or hundreds of watts or thousands of watts, but my guess is in the thousands of watts range. at this 28 kilohertz frequency.
That's kind of interesting. What type of energy is it? Is there some way you can classify the type of energy coming off that?
Yeah, it's dominant energy. Dominant energy or polar energy or orgone energy are pretty much all synonymous. The difference is if you condense it enough, you get electricity like goes through wires. It's not electrons, but if you condense it enough, you'll get electric-like action through wires. But when you first pick it up, it's magnetism, and the magnetism is going into the pyramid and bouncing around inside that pyramid, and the angles of deflection inside the pyramid cause energy to build up, a little bit like a laser. In the laser, you shoot it in this tube. The original lasers, the simplest lasers, you shoot it in the tube with a one-way mirror, and the energy goes in and starts bouncing around. It gets more and more condensed, and then it starts shooting out the other end. So a pyramid is a little bit like that, except it shoots off all the corners. It shoots off the main peak, which is one corner, and then it shoots off of the 4 corners at the bottom. And you know what the effect is on the properties around there?
I have no idea.
Okay, you didn't get to.
No, I didn't get to watch this. No, but I know that.
Interesting stuff. You're busy. You're very busy today, so it's no problem.
Yeah. Now we have a picture up that actually shows. It appears to be an overlay on top of the hill to show the pyramid what it might have looked like, and it's really quite large, and this one has like sort of 2 tiers to it. It looks.
Yeah, this pyramid is the largest one ever discovered. It's in volume. It's probably 10 times bigger than the Giza pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its base is what this guy is saying. And he's the expert. He's the one there doing the digging. He says the base is 1.5 miles across the widest part. That's pretty awesome. 1.5 miles. That's the base, but because of the way it's built on the side of a mountain, the base isn't the same everywhere. The base is only 1.5 miles at the widest part. But even so, even if you take it where the whole has 4 sides, it's still 1.5 times bigger than the Pyramid of Giza, approximately 1.5 times taller. And in volume, it's probably still 10 times more volume, which is pretty awesome.
Okay, do they know who built these things?
They don't. They're ancient technologies, ancient civilizations. Pretty amazing, huh?
That is really amazing. I'm going to try to continue to go through some of these pictures for you, and I'll tell you which one we're on here.
Well, I'm going to I'm typing this in as we talk, so we can just, if you have any other questions, just feel free. You don't have to change anything. In other words, let's just see if I can pull it up.
Okay. Yeah, it's this is a huge thing. Now, where is this pyramid that we're seeing?
There's 3 of them been discovered there, and they're in Bosnia, which right in the center area of Bosnia. The nearest town, BN, I forget the name of it, but it's the town's actually built partly on the pyramid. That whole valley is very fertile because of the energy coming off. What people don't realize is probably the main purpose of pyramids is to make the land and the people and the animals nearby all a lot more healthier and strong. And the animals and the food and the vegetables, everything grown in that area becomes much, much healthier and much, much stronger than normal. Well, I say much, probably 1.5 times roughly healthier or stronger than normal. And that would mean you'd live about 1.5 times longer too. Maybe 2 times in that range. And that's why they built the pyramids. That's why they were built in Egypt. And that's why they were built all over the world, is because the people building them knew that if they built it right, it would put out energy that would be life energy, and it would enhance their health and enhance their life. Also, it's real good for preserving food. you can put food in the pyramid, and the food doesn't spoil. The food will last for a very long time, and it actually tastes better. If you take a simple experiment is to take some orange juice concentrate and mix it up according to directions, and pour 2 glasses, one one for control and the other one to go into the pyramid. Make sure your control is at least 50 feet away from the pyramid, and your mix is at least 50 feet away from the pyramid. And then put it in your pyramid. If your pyramid's built correctly and aligned correctly with the magnetic field of the Earth, within about 2 minutes you can taste the difference. The pyramid orange juice tastes sweeter and less acidy and healthier. And it is healthier. It's been tested. And so that's an awesome thing, awesome discovery to see that people thousands of years ago were building these things and used them. Now this pyramid, they say, is the oldest one ever discovered, is what they're thinking. Now I don't know because I haven't been there, but I wasn't around when they built it, so I don't know how old it is. But it is possible some of these pyramids were built, I'm sure, before the flood of Noah's day, and I say some of them around the world. There's over 2,500 pyramids around the world, and actually some people say 4,500. But there's a large number of pyramids around the world that have been discovered. And actually, I know of several that haven't been discovered officially yet. There's pyramids in Alaska that haven't been discovered officially, and there's pyramids in Antarctica that haven't been discovered officially yet. So there's a huge number of pyramids worldwide that at one time were almost all for sure used for increased productivity in the land. And some people theorize it also may have a use for helping the Earth be more stable in its orbit and in its geography and so on. That's a possibility.
Do you think these things are still performing their purpose, or are they still active? Because I know that I've been to see some of the pyramids down in the Yucatan Peninsula, and many of them are down in jungles. It's real lush and green, but and these apparently look also, the ones in Bosnia look like they're in real fertile land. So is there something going on with some of these pyramids, whereas the ones out on the Giza Plateau are not active anymore, or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do believe anytime you can read the energy coming off the peak, that means that pyramid is still actively making the land more fertile and more healthy. The energy it's been proven over and over again that if you put anything in a pyramid or near one of the points, the peak or any of the 4 points on the bottom, that will become much more beneficial for life, for human life usually, and animal life. Even bacteria that are normally poisonous or quite deadly to humans, if you put it in the peak of a pyramid, it becomes benign and inert or dies, one of the three, whereas bacteria that are healthy for humans thrive. And they don't die from that, and that's one of the effects. So yeah, these things are still working. Like you say, it looks pretty lush and healthy there. I think most of them are still working. There's some of them that have gotten probably too far out of alignment magnetically because the Earth's magnetic pole keeps moving, And after a while, they get too far out where they would definitely get weaker. And that's probably why Egypt, the Great Pyramid, is aligned to true north, so it's off from magnetic north. And the land, of course, is real dry and barren now. But I think when they originally built those, I think it was quite lush and quite a beneficial thing that they had going for the land. And so that's, if you read in the Bible, the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, and it says that they all enjoyed the fruit of the vine and the pomegranates and everything else. So the land was lush and fertile at one time. And there's plenty of evidence to that effect, and it's they've gotten out of alignment, so it doesn't do as good of a job as it did. I'll put it that way.
Right. We did see a few slides that went across that were showing examples of possible pyramids that are on Mars. I think there's been a lot of research, at least alternative research that's tried to show that there's definitely something going on some of the
Yeah,
plains
Doc.
of Mars.
Yeah, Dr. Richard Hoagland is a fellow scientist that also worked with NASA, the same as I did, and the same as a number of us did. He was hired by NASA to determine if there was anything to this area of the face, particularly the so-called face on Mars. And his conclusion was that not only was there a face that was real, but also that there was pyramids in that same area. And he called the area Cydonia. And yeah, that's what you're seeing. So he's convinced that those are real pyramids. They're very, very old. You know, maybe, I don't know, maybe 15, 20,000 years old, maybe older. He's absolutely thoroughly convinced. I have studied his evidence, so I can't say conclusively based on his evidence. But it wouldn't surprise me if there are pyramids on Mars. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. And same thing with that face. That face does look like a face. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's a real face that somebody sculptured either, thousands of years ago. It had to be, if it was in this creation since Adam and Eve, it would have had to have been before the flood that people went there and built all that. But the other possibility is that there's a big gap. It's possible there's a big gap between Genesis 1 and Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, the first and the second verse, where it says in the first verse that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and the second verse says the earth was formless and void, and there was darkness upon the face of the earth, and the waters were covering the earth. And that second verse, the reason many scholars think there might have been a long time period there and something else happened is because that second verse says the earth was formless and void, which in Hebrew is tohu bohu, formless and void. And Isaiah says that God says he did not create it formless and void. So that gives you the idea that something happened between those two, something significant that caused a worldwide destruction, some kind of judgment, some kind of corrupt world or something. It's a possibility. So it's possible these things really are. They're estimating this Bosnian pyramid to be between approximately 12, 15,000, 20,000 years old. So it's possible they are that old, or it's possible they were built before the flood of Noah's day, and they just look very old because of that.
Wow.
But
what's
really interesting? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is the relationship between the way they're out positioned out on the plain? They look like they form some sort of a triangle.
Yeah, the three pyramids in Bosnia.
Right.
Or the three in Egypt.
Well, he's saying the three in Bosnia and the three in Egypt, they're all forming some sort of a triangle.
Well, the three in Egypt form a perfect replica, and even the distances and so on, to Orion's belt in the stars we call Orion, the star cluster called Orion, or the star constellation we call Orion. And Orion's belt, the distance and the spacing is a perfect replica of the three largest pyramids in Egypt. And so that's what the spatial relationship is there, is in Egypt. They're Orion's belt. They've been patterned after the spacing and the distance. They're patterned after the three stars of Orion's belt. And the three that are in Bosnia, those perform a perfect equilateral triangle, or a perfect triangle, if you want to say it that way. The angles are exactly the same, and the lines are exactly the same, and the angles are exactly the same. That's equilateral triangle. And the peak from the peak of the three pyramids, it's that perfect triangle, and they're exactly 365 meters from peak to peak, which 365 is the same as the number of days in a year. And the meter is actually based, when I heard that, I looked up to see where a meter comes from, and the meter is actually, I think, 1/10 millionth of the Earth's, from the North Pole to the equator, I think it's 1/10 millionth. It's an even number like that, or 100 millionth or something, or maybe 1 millionth, but it's an even number. And that's where they get a meter from. So it's very likely that these people from millennia, thousands, or whatever, thousands of years ago, that they used. It wouldn't surprise me if they used a meter too, because or that they may have decided to use a unit of measurement that corresponded to the distance from the Earth's North Pole to the equator, and also the Earth's South Pole to the equator. And you take, I think it's 100,000 or 1/10,000 of that, and that's a meter. And so 365 meters is not only the distance from peak to peak, but it's also the distance of the widest side of the base of that great pyramid, or they're calling it the Pyramid of the Sun, there in Bosnia. That's pretty awesome, isn't it?
That's truly amazing. Is there a reason for the ones that you mentioned were related to Orion's belt? Is there some reason for that we know?
Well, it's an interesting pattern. It shows up more than once, and I would say the speculation is, and the stories that have been handed down, and possibly even some deciphered writings, is that they had the people that built those three pyramids say they had communication with the gods that were from that area of space. In other words, these gods traveled from a planet around one of those stars, and they came and instructed the Egyptians in different arts, including, possibly pyramid building, who knows. But so that's the handed down, or it's actually the popular version now as to why. And what's interesting is if you go to South America, there's three pyramids there that also correspond exactly to that same configuration, that same Orion's belt, the way they're laid out and the distances. And there's another pyramid complex in South America that corresponds to the sun and all the planets and the distances they have in relation to each other. And so apparently these pyramid builders knew quite a bit about the Earth and the way things are laid out, basically, the spacing between the planets, the distance between the orbits of the planets, and even the relationship of the stars and so on. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Is there a significance to the material that these things are created from?
The Bosnian pyramids are quite amazing. The biggest one, that's a very good question. Yeah, that blew my mind when I first started reading about it. The biggest one, it looks like it's too soon to say what the main part of the body is because they haven't done enough digging, but it's probably just dirt or a mountain that's been shaped into a pyramid. They started with a mountain and shaped it because it's so huge, labor intensive wise, but they covered the surface of it with a white stone. And at first they thought it was a white stone, and then they had it analyzed. They broke off pieces of it and sent it into different labs. 4 different labs worldwide concurred that it wasn't a stone. It was actually a type of concrete that was made thousands and thousands of years ago. And it was so hard, and it's still white. When you uncover it, it's still beautiful white color. And it's so hard and so perfectly made that it's still in very good condition for after all these thousands of years, each piece. And also, normally any kind of stone or any kind of concrete, trees, spruce trees, and any kind of trees with needles can secrete an acid at the root, and they'll go right through the hardest rock we got. Whereas this stuff, it didn't even scratch it or dent the surface, even though there were these trees growing there. They would come up to this and they couldn't penetrate it. And that's quite phenomenal. Plus the fact that normal concrete, the stuff we have nowadays, only lasts about 200, 300 years, and then it just turns to mud or powder, depending on if you're dry area or wet area. In about 300 years, normal concrete, maybe 400 years tops. Normal concrete is junk after 300 or 400 years, the stuff we use nowadays, whereas this stuff is thousands of years old and still in like new condition. Isn't that amazing?
That is remarkable.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think we need some of that cement. Well, maybe we don't. I think we got too much cement. So I'm wondering. You mentioned that it was possible that they had actually taken an existing mountain and turned it into a pyramid. I never even thought about that'd be something that they might do.
Yeah, it would save a lot of labor. The tunnels, there's tunnels inside, and you might see those pictures go across the screen after a little bit.
Yeah, I think we have seen a few of those come across.
The tunnels actually link. They said they've discovered over 10 miles of tunnels. 10 miles is a lot of tunnels, and the tunnels actually link all three pyramids together underground. And there's underground streams and underground lakes and so on. And the tunnels, if you look at them, it just looks like regular rock and regular dirt, gravel type dirt in the edges of the tunnels. So my guess, and I haven't been there, so I can't say for sure. This will be a good question for Dr. Sam when we get him on the show, is to ask him, if he thinks it was a sculptured mountain, or did somebody move it all in there, and is it made of dirt, or is it made of rocks or whatever. I know he may not have done enough digging to know the answers to that yet, because it is a huge project. They say they have, I think it was 350,000 man hours into it, or maybe 350 million man hours. I think it was 350,000 man hours into it. So that's all the people that came to volunteer to help dig. And I don't think they've basically just uncovered a little bit of the surface, a few places. And you'll see that in the videos as it plays. Because it's a huge, mile and a half square, roughly. It's huge. It's plus there's three of them, three pyramids, and the biggest one, it's very big structure. It's probably the biggest ancient structure ever discovered. Although there are some pyramids in China where the base is almost as big as these, or just as big as these, but they're not as tall. They're flattened. They're like barely, they look like a pyramid when you're flying over them, but the peaks are not there as much. It's a flattened, and those are almost all dirt. The ones in China, as far as we know, there's still a lot of secrecy with the Chinese government about the pyramids there. But what's interesting about those pyramids in China?
What's that?
They put them in the middle of fields, and it's the most productive fields that they have. So those are still working.
That's interesting. I wonder if I know the Native American Indians. They have mounds in different places, and I don't know if they're part of the Native Americans that we know now, or if they were some previous civilization that left those.
Yes, that's a fascinating subject. You bring that up. Yeah, they're calling those pyramids now also, and there's one in Indiana and one in Ohio that I know of, and they do look a little bit like pyramids. And so so somebody was building them even here. They're not quite the same design or structure, but they were built, and some are built with dirt and some are built with stones. And so it looks, the one in Bosnia looks like they covered it with this white concrete about 4 to 6 inches thick, so it looks like. Whereas the ones in the United States that are over here, they would put all kinds of things in them, but mostly dirt. They mostly were made out of dirt. Although the ones in South America are very nice structures, solid stone and so on. So that's very advanced pyramid building. But it looks like ancient man, or ancient intelligent races knew that the value of pyramids and how important they are to having productive crops and productive lands, and that looks like one of the main reasons they built them. Yeah,
I tell you, looking at pyramids always reminds me of Ed Leedskalnin and the Coral Castle stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was awesome that he built all that by himself, and then he moved it all. That's even more awesome.
Yeah, and it's even amazing how no one really saw him how he did any of that. And but I've been there in person, and it's like these are huge. They're coral stones, and they're just massive. And it's like, how does one guy move these things around, much less shape them or craft them?
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been there too, and it's very impressive if you think about one guy doing all that. His gate, when I was there, the gate wasn't working properly at all. But when he was still alive, that gate, which weighed 20 tons or whatever, you could push it with one finger and it would open, and push it with one finger and it would close. That's pretty awesome. You remember? Did you get to see the gate?
Yeah, I saw the gate, and it also wasn't. It wasn't like it was used to be. They had a sign up that said that they had to repair it or take it apart to repair it, and it took like a huge crane or something to lift that thing. And I think it was just some sort of I want to say a truck bearing or something that he had used, but somehow he had balanced it so well that it lasted for decades, where it was just simple push that gate open.
Yeah, it's awesome that that one man was able to do all that. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. And people think that he may have had anti-gravity technology. I wouldn't be surprised in the least to find out that he did have some sort of anti-gravity technology.
Yeah,
he used to work for. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say he always talked about, at least some of the writings that I had read that he wrote. He talked about little magnets coming in from the, basically from space toward the Earth, and he referred to, I kind of think of that as these energies that sometimes you talk about, the dominant energy, and the polar and the parapolar and so forth. It's almost like he had discovered something too, but he called them little magnets that were always flowing around.
Yeah, it's an interesting model that he presented. I bought his little pamphlet. They're still selling his little pamphlet. Did you buy one of those when you were there?
Yeah, I think I still have it somewhere on my shelf somewhere.
Yeah, I think I might too. But it's interesting concepts that he promoted, and it is possible that that's the way to look at things. There is energy coming in from space, and it probably does get aligned. Some of it gets aligned, I know for a fact, when it gets here, and that does eventually relate to gravity. Probably also magnetism. Eventually, that's what the effects wind up being. It's what we call gravity and magnetism. That's pretty awesome stuff, and it's amazing. It's just amazing stuff, actually. And now, just so people know, they can use pyramids not only for producing energy at the peak, if you want a form of RF, and the bigger you make your pyramid, the lower the frequency. Just like the bigger you make your capacitor, the bigger you make your inductor, the lower the frequency. But you can also use them for preserving food or for dehydrating food, if you make them that way. Ideally, our refrigerators would be pyramid shapes, and the food would be much better quality after you store it. You can literally taste the difference if you're sensitive in your sense of taste, even with water. You can put water or orange juice or whatever. You can do these experiments and taste the difference. And this is it's been proven that you can get up to 5 times. Some people say 500 times, or however you want to look at it, 500 times more effective results for like antibiotics. If you put antibiotics in this pyramid for 24 hours and then take the antibiotic, it's 5 times more effective than if you didn't put it in the pyramid first. And that's pretty phenomenal. Plus, basically all foods and all medicines wind up becoming more effective for health, I'll put it that way, in the human organism and animals as well. So that's pretty awesome use, and that's probably what my guess is. The Great Pyramid of Giza, at one time at least, was used for grain storage. I'll bet you. I'd be very surprised to find out otherwise. It's got that long shaft that comes down at an angle, and then it empties into that big room. So you could easily throw grain like corn or rice or wheat down that, and it would just fill right up, and then that shaft leads to other shafts and so on. And that's an excellent way to keep grain for many years in a system like that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. There's actually a up in Canada. I was up there visiting it's Penticton, which would be in British Columbia, I guess, and they have a winery up there that they built a pretty good size pyramid to age their wine in and store their wine. They basically once they're finished with the final, I guess, fermentation, and they bottle it, it ends up in the pyramid for a number of months before they sell it. And they'll give you some before and after it's been aged in the pyramid, and there's a large difference in taste of that wine, and they've won all sorts of awards and all sorts of things with that. It is quite remarkable.
Excellent. Now, is that a winery in your area or in California? Or?
No. It was up in Canada, outside Penticton, Canada, British Columbia.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, okay. And who's running that? Do you know?
I can't remember the name of the winery. I could probably find that for you. It's in the Okanagan valley up there, and there's a lot of grape growing going on in that valley. It's sort of high desert up there, and they're known for some of their wines these days. But it is quite remarkable. They have some pretty free thinkers up there to be building pyramids and aging wine in it.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to see that operation. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'd like to see it, and you learn from it. You said they built a big pyramid, or what did you say? I was distracted a little bit there. If you don't mind, repeat that.
Yeah, it is a big. It's a fairly good sized pyramid. It's I can't remember exactly what the base of it would be, but it would have to be probably at least 50 by 50 feet along the base. So. It's a good-sized room inside, and I know that they did align it. I don't remember if it was magnetic or the North Pole, but they brought in some people that were, I guess, experts in pyramids and had written some books, and they tried to actually replicate it as best they could. And I think it is made of cement pieces on the side and so forth. It's a big old thing, though, and
awesome.
They have a postcard. I might have mentioned this to you once before or a while back. They have a postcard that they sell in their gift shop that a visitor had taken, where she was out having a glass of wine one evening, and she was taking pictures of the scenery around there, and she had captured a shot that she later saw when she had the I guess the images either developed or on the computer. She didn't see it with her eyes when she was there, but one of the shots came out, and there's a stream of light coming out of the peak of the pyramid going up into the sky. And
that's what I was talking about. That's good. You saw that on a video. If you get the weather conditions right, it'll show up with the naked eye. And of course, sometimes people say, "Well, I didn't see it with my eye, but it's my camera got it." So cameras have ability to look a little bit different wavelengths than our eyes do. And so, yeah, it's awesome to know that that's there. And that's really why pyramids are called that. Fire in the middle is because that's the main reason. There was also usually a ball lightning inside of most of the Giza pyramids, and others probably as well. But that's another reason it's called fire in the middle. But that's an awesome testimony. And you tasted the wine and you thought it was excellent, huh?
Oh yeah, it was. I ended up buying a few bottles and bringing them back. I still have one here, and but that's one of their trademarks up there is how they age it in a pyramid. They give tours of it. You can. They even have. I think some of the local people organize little meditations and stuff inside the pyramid. I mean, that sounds kind of weird, but if it really is making things, enlivening things or making the life energy better, that's an awesome thing to be doing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, absolutely. In this northern country, it's very common to see unusual shaped buildings, and they're holding sand for the wintertime or salt for the wintertime. And these are not pyramid shapes, but they're I forget the shape, but it's a shape that tends to hold dominant energy, and maybe not the exact same kind. There's always different flavors of dominant, as you know, it's a whole color wheel. So you can easily get shifted to one, and when you get shifted, it'll have different effects. But the reason they store their salt and they store their sand is because it keeps it dry, and it's more energetic. It's easier it doesn't clump together and cluster and freeze and so on, even though it gets very cold. And that's another use for a pyramid. It's a demonstration that can be given. If you're in a cold country, you can build a pyramid and you can put a gallon of water in there, and it'll get all the way down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 30. You can actually go all the way down to 40 below, and the water won't freeze. The water's still liquid, and you can pick up the jug, take it out of the pyramid, and it'll freeze instantly while you're standing there, while you got it in your hand. Say you got a gallon jug of water, pick it up and take it out. We did this in Alaska. That's why
That's
I know.
amazing. That is really amazing.
Now, if you put it back in the pyramid, it doesn't thaw out right away. But if you wait about 4 or 5 days, even though it never gets really warm, it'll gradually thaw out. So that tells you something's going on there. What's happening is when you take it out of the pyramid, you shake it a little bit, it freezes real fast, and you're shaking off the dominant energy is what's happening. You're shaking that off. And this has been proven even in metals. If you if you weigh that metal real carefully in the pyramid, it weighs X amount, and you bring it outside the pyramid and you strike it with a hammer, it'll weigh less. And it takes hours to get back up to the same weight, or it doesn't ever get back up to the same weight. And so it shows you knock something off.
That's
even without the pyramid, you'll get a little bit of that effect. It's minor; it's very small amounts of difference in weight, but it shows that something happened. It'll go if you don't have it in a pyramid. Or if you put it back in, let's say you put it back in the pyramid, it'll gradually get back to the same weight. That piece of metal. Let's say it's a rectangle of steel or whatever. It'll gradually get back up to the same weight. Stainless steel, let's say, because if it's steel, then it might get rusty, and then you have a hard time getting back up to the same weight if you knock off some of the rust. But but stainless steel, let's say stainless steel or copper, it actually loses. It's been proven, even without pyramids, that effect is true. So some dominant energy is just on the surface of this planet. Anytime you take a chunk of metal, probably anything crystalline or hard, and hit it, you knock off some of the mass. It's literally, but then it absorbs it again over a period of hours back to its normal weight. And it's more profound in pyramids. In other words, the difference is bigger. But you can do it without a pyramid. Just because we live on the surface of this Earth and it's a sphere, it tends to collect that same kind of energy. It's just not as concentrated as if you had a pyramid. So you won't see as big of an effect on the surface of the Earth. But that shows you that, the molecules are actually. That kind of relates back to the you read about the Tibetans that were. I think they were Tibetans that were making lots of noise behind this boulder, and they got the boulder to levitate.
Right, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So that's like a vibration. That's like a continued vibration on that stone. You say the horns and all would be tuned to the mass of that stone to produce maximum amounts of vibration in that stone. And all the stones that they were levitating, they'd levitate a bunch of them, but they'd make sure they're all exactly the same size and weight for their musical instruments. And occasionally one would break; it would have an imperfection in it, and so all that vibration, I'm sure, puts a lot of stress on them. So occasionally one would break, and then they'd have to discard it, and it wouldn't work. But
yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, you have some questions. I was going to bring up the fact that you mentioned Tibet. They also have, I believe, there's stone. They're not exactly pyramids, but there's some sort of stone towers out there. That no one seems to know what they're for, but they're in real lush high elevation farmlands that have been there for a long time, and these people that have been there for a long time won't ever leave because that's where they raise all their food and their animals, and it's just real lush way up in the mountains.
So a little bit like Shangri-La, the story about Shangri-La and that type of thing, right?
Exactly, and I can't remember what they call these. They're like obelisks or something. They're stone out in the middle of these fields, and the locals, they just, they're just part of the landscape. But it's like it's obvious to the outsiders that come in because it's like, well, why do you have stone towers out through your fields, every mile or every half mile or something? And I'd be interested to see what those look like. But yeah, the steeper the pyramid, the more, generally speaking, the more energy shoots up into the air. Although at higher elevations, maybe that's what you want. Whereas the less steep the pyramid, the more energy shoots off the four corners into the land, basically. That's almost acting like a lens then.
Yeah. Well, the sharper the point of the object, the more electrical spray you get off of it. So it kind of relates to that. The flatter the pyramid, that means the four corners at the bottom are more sharper, and with the steep, if you have steep like this, then this one's sharper. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Let me go to some of the questions. Otherwise, we'll wind up going too far over on our time, I think. Yeah. Brother Jim and Randy are both asking, what can I make a pyramid at home to help preserve food and do experiments with? Okay, what can I make it with? Will wood work? You want to answer that, brother?
No, you go ahead.
Well, you can make a pyramid out of anything, although if you make, in other words, the best things are non-magnetic materials. You can use nails if you're making it out of wood. Say you can use nails to hold it together. It's just you can also get aluminum screws, and they'll work better. Non-magnetic screws that they use on roofing material a lot of times. Those will work better and easier to deal with. Whereas if you use nails, they're magnetic, so you have to go through with a magnet out. You build your pyramid, so one side's facing directly magnetically north. But then after you build it, if you've got nails in it, you need to go around with a magnet, and you need to make sure, with a strong neodymium, and click it to all the nails, so you get all the nails aligned with that same field. And then that's pretty good. That's a pretty good. You can make them out of wood. You can make them out of aluminum. You can make them out of cardboard. You can make them out of basically any material that's not iron. Basically, even iron will work if it's magnetized properly. So. It's basically anything you want to make it out of, stone, anything you want to make them out of. Said, will wood work? Yeah, the answer is yes. And then Brother Lidke said energy coming off the top of the pyramid is dominant energy. Is that referring to the RF energy or a separate energy? What happens when it comes off the top, if your pyramid's aligned correctly and big enough, then that energy shooting off the top will wind up pulsating as it goes off. And I don't know what causes the pulsation, except that I know that generally speaking, the bigger the pyramid, the lower the pulsation. So I'd say it has something to do with the whole mass of the pyramid. And there's usually envelope frequencies too. In other words, this one in Bosnia, they say is 28,000 cycles, but there's an envelope envelope frequency of or subharmonic, I guess you could call it that, of around 3,000 cycles on that one. So it is dominant energy shooting off, but it winds up, because of it pulsating, it's vibrating nature. It becomes RF, or measurably very similar to RF. I'll put it that way. And it's stronger a little ways away from the pyramid peak. Right at the peak, it's actually a little weaker, and that's normal. But it's just the way it works. As far as when I say it's stronger, it's stronger as far as the RF part. The vibration part picks up as it's stronger as it gets further away, and whereas right down low, it's more steady. I'll put it that way. Next question.
That's kind of interesting. Just to let you know that we have you back live on the screen, so we're not watching pictures anymore.
Sit up straight here. Okay. Don't slouch. Okay. All right, let's see. Brother Jim asks, what if someone wore a pyramid-shaped hat? Would it help the person think better? Yeah, you could try it. It sounds kind of interesting, but and that reminds me, I have some answers from brother. I don't know if it's the same Brother Jim or not, but this Brother Jim from last week, he wanted to know some scriptures, so I did look them up, and I can give those to him. Well, I do that right now so I don't forget later. He asked about the scripture that says the accuser of our brothers has been hurled down, who accuses them day and night before our Lord, and that's Revelation 12:10. And the other one was edify each other, and that's 1 Thessalonians 5:11, and also Ephesians 4:29 say the same thing. So those are the answers to the questions from last week. I didn't know them off the top of my head. And so we got another question from Brother Lidke. It says, have you seen any research on whether a pyramid is more effective hollow versus filled? I have not seen research on that, but I know they're effective both ways. What about you, Brother Martin? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything about that, but I will ask you this. You mentioned there's energy coming off the top of the pyramid. Well, if you're putting things in the pyramid, it would seem that something's going on the opposite way. In other words, there's some sort of energy coming into the pyramid toward the center to energize things or to preserve things. So, is there a two-way street going on there?
Well, magnetism is sort of a two-way street, but it has a directional flow. We say it flows from, some people say from north to south, and other people say from south to north. But, whatever, there's a flow going on. And the magnetism is probably the primary energy that the pyramid's picking up, because if you don't get them aligned magnetically, they're weaker. And they still work, but the more you get them out of line, the weaker they are. So that kind of tells you that magnetism is a key point. But even teepees still have some of the same energy. A teepee is, round, you could say a cone, a teepee. It still has some of the same kind of energy effects. Yeah, so magnetism is the input, and then that bounces around in there, winds up becoming a different kind of energy, and it winds up escaping. It's more concentrated, too. It winds up escaping from it's like a laser. You take one beam in there, and the laser that finally escapes is much more concentrated and much more powerful than what went in. So I'd say it's somewhat like that.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting that you're saying that, because we wouldn't normally think that magnetism would have much to do with this, because you're saying we can make them out of wood or cardboard or anything. So how would magnetism be affected by this shape?
Yeah, it has to do with a component of magnetism that is the dominant energy field, especially on the Earth itself. The magnetism is not just the magnetism we have on this Earth is not ordinary magnetism. It's a dominant energy magnetism. It breaks down much better and concentrates much better. Dominant energy wants to concentrate. It's just the nature of dominant energy. Dominant energy is the creative force of the universe that creates health and life. I'm sure it's related to the Holy Spirit, related to God, and related to the power of God. It is the creative. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I'm saying it is one of the most common creative force that we see in nature. I'll put it that way, because it tends to cluster, and you get enough cluster on anything, and it tends to excite and amplify life and make it stronger. So that's pretty phenomenal.
So is magnetism the manifestation of a particular dominant energy?
Yeah, it contains a dominant energy. All magnetism contains a dominant energy, but living magnetism that's on a living planet is much more, the word I'd say alive, much more effective. And the magnets, that's why I tell people, some people build them, and as long as they have magnets, they just turn it any which way. But I always tell people it's best, and I've experimented, it's best to put your magnets in line with the Earth's magnetism. So you're just amplifying something that's already going on. And it does make a difference. And so even the permanent magnets do make a difference. We're getting a lot of questions here. Let's take a few more. Let's see. Have you seen any research? Okay, we did that one. Do the pyramids have to be made out of a specific thing to be beneficial to the environment? Yeah, the answer is make them out of something healthy. If you have chemicals, if you smell it and it doesn't smell good, it needs to be it needs to be healthy. It needs to smell good. If you paint your pyramid, make sure your paint is like the kind that they have a kind now that's made from milk, and that's what it says. And it smells good. It smells like sour milk, basically. If it smells natural, then it's probably okay. And if it smells, cardboard's usually pretty good. The glues are pretty healthy. Plywood is healthier than particle board, I can tell you that for sure. So make it out of as healthy materials as you can, and then of course leave it open so it airs out. For if it is anything even the least little bit questionable, air it out. But pyramids will help neutralize poisons too, and that's been proven also. It'll actually neutralize. They had some bees in there, and they had the bees sting people, and they were much less reactive. Even people that were highly allergic to bees could take a bee sting from bees living in a pyramid. So if we made all of our beehives pyramid shape, I don't know if the bees would take it or not, if they'd put up with it or not, but if they would, that would be an excellent thing. For the honey would be better, and the bee stings would be a lot milder. But the bees may have an objection, I'm not sure. Anyway, let's see what the next one is.
Well, I think if the bees thought that was a good shape, they'd be building it that way.
Yeah, they pick in nature. Their house is an old empty log or an empty tree, a hollowed out tree, and that's a real common house. But they live in these square boxes that people make, And
well, I was wondering about a beehive. Aren't they typically sort of oval or round shaped?
I've taken apart in the woods. I've taken apart wild honeybees trees, and they'll build in any kind of a shape that's available. Is what I've seen. The tree usually it's a hollow log, or a hollow tree, a hole in the tree, and occasionally they'll build in a cave. It's a shallow cave. up near the top where it's dry, they'll do that, but they don't like it as much. They like something with a hole where they're more protected from predators and so on. Smaller opening, and so I think they might live in if you did it right, you could probably get them to live in a pyramid. I don't know for sure it'd be interesting to experiment to see what happens.
Yeah, they've also got something going on with that honeycomb shape in there that they're building.
Yeah, that's a dominant energy shape itself, the honeycomb shape. Yeah, it's collecting dominant energy, and that makes the honey probably as good as it, pretty good for you. Let's see what else we got for questions here. Yeah, it's the shape that makes it effective. He's asking if it's the shape that makes it effective. Yeah, it's the shape. It's not the materials so much. Just make the materials healthy. Let's see. Then Brother Lidke asked, when selecting materials for the pyramid, why is the type of material not really an issue? I think we covered that mostly. Also, not good to use toxic materials, right? Yeah, absolutely. And Brother Randy asks, is it possible that one could start with the ideal shape of a pyramid? Yeah, that's good. That's a good shape. And then accentuate or sharpen the corners to focus the energy more than usual. If you want the energy shooting out of the bottom corners, you make your pyramid lower. But if you want it to be evenly spaced where it shoots out of the bottom and the top, then you make it 54 degrees, and that's probably going to give you the most energy in your pyramid. If you structure it curved like that, if that's what you're asking, that's kind of hard to build, but I mean, I don't know what would happen. You can try it. That's all I can say. I haven't built one like that, so probably would still work. It's a different shape. It's a different. Let me know your results. It sounds like an interesting experiment. And that's it for our questions. So thank you all for your questions, and thank you for helping with the show, Brother Martin. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's not a problem. Yeah, I was thinking while you were talking about that, the pyramids that are built just like a wireframe pyramid, would that have any effect?
People build them like that, and they even promote it. And I personally have tested those, and you get very little effect with those type of pyramids. I think what the confusion is the power of faith comes in there. And the other thing is there's two confusions. One's the power of faith. The other one is usually these people that are building the little wire ones have already have a few around that are the regular kind, and they already experimented with that, and they're trying to make it simpler, And so they build these little wire ones, and they see they got effects. And a lot of times it's because the dominant energy is building up in the room that they're working in. They've got these other pyramids that's shooting off the four corners, shooting off the top. And so the dominant energy starts building. That's why I tell people, make it at least 50 feet away if you can. If in other words, if you're doing another experiment and you don't want dominant energy, it'll tend to stick to you, and it tends to fill up a room. And so it's easy to contaminate your experiments, real easy, much easier than people realize, because it does stick to your hands, stick to your whole body. It'll follow you around like a cloud. And so it takes a little bit of effort to make sure you're not confusing yourself.
You got me really curious now, because now I'm going, can you take a shower and it comes off in the shower, or does it hang on you?
It hangs on. It depends on what your field is, your natural field of your body. It depends on how long it hangs on. If you happen to be polar, it'll hang on for a long time. It might hang on for weeks.
Wow.
Even if you shower and everything else, change clothes and everything else. So people wind up carrying the field around with them, especially polar people, carrying the charge around with them, especially, if they have one of these at home or in their backyard. Now, if it's just a pyramid, they're not going to have any weird electrical effects. Because it doesn't get that concentrated. It doesn't usually get that concentrated. I'll put it that way. So, so they won't have any unusual electrical effects, but everything will taste better. Anything they hold for a while, will taste better. Stuff like this, because that energy field is on them. And it'll follow you around if you're polar, it can follow you around for months. If you're antipolar or dipolar or parapolar, it'll tend to shed much faster, maybe a day or two or three. You'll be able to get rid of it. So, depends on how strongly polar, dipolar, parapolar, and all that too.
Okay, well, I have one more anecdote here.
Okay. Yeah.
This is an interesting subject. I did have a friend. I haven't spoken with him in many years, but he did, and this was when I was just sort of learning about a lot of this this woo-woo stuff that people would say. He actually did some experiments, actually meditating by where you're kind of somewhat half joking about wearing a pyramid on your head. He actually had built some pyramids that you could wear on his head, and he said he had some quite remarkable experiences. I think it actually kind of spooked him a little, in that it got to be a little bit too intense or too much for him or something.
Yeah.
And so he did have an.
Did he say what the experiences were?
I can't remember now. It's been so long ago that he was describing to it. And it's kind of like when someone, when you're first learning about some of these things, and people are talking about wearing pyramids on your head, you're somewhat distracted. Like, wait a minute, I just have this picture of you wearing a pyramid on your head. And somebody was telling me about it, and he really did say though that they had. It definitely was something that had an effect that wasn't very subtle, apparently. And
it can get strong for some people. It's so strong that they quit doing it. They have to get away from it.
Yeah.
A lot of people get more vivid dreams when they're in a pyramid. Try to sleep in one or on top of one, or if you wore one on your head, I imagine it might do the same thing. A lot of people will get more vivid dreams. And if you get magnetism near your forehead and you go to sleep, you almost always dream about aliens or abductions or some kind of crazy thing like that. And so a lot of people say you can easily induce an abduction dream, or you think you're abducted by aliens or whatever, because of that. Magnetism on your forehead does that. It's kind of weird, but it does.
That is kind of weird. I'm not gonna be sleeping with any magnets on my head.
A lot of people, they get these dreams, very vivid or very strong dreams, and so they don't want anything dominant energy anywhere around them. Now, what I have noticed, there is a type of sand that's highly polarized with the polar field, and it's available here at the ministry if people want to order it. It's going to cost probably about $20 for a little packet of it, but you can carry it around with you, and it'll improve your health. And but the disadvantage is, especially women or young children tend to dream a lot more than normal, and some people that they don't like that, they can't sleep as good or something. But so that's kind of like a side. Now that one's not completely balanced. It's kind of like a side effect. That one's not completely balanced. That one tends to be more polar, whereas like the Queet, it'll do the same thing, but it's balanced. If you wear it next to your skin anywhere in your body, it'll do the same thing. The sand you can put in your pocket. You don't have to wear it next to your body. So the sand works at a little more of a distance, and it's stronger, but it's not as balanced. So it's only for healing. It's not for electrical work at all, because it would tend to burn things up electrically real pretty fast. Anyway, let's see what else. We do have a few more questions. Did I take it?
Whoops. Did I cause somebody to ask more questions?
I can say, when you started asking, I guess it got people thinking there. So,
I hate it when people start thinking.
I can save them for next week. It's no problem.
No, it's probably more relevant if you go ahead and ask them now, because they won't remember what they were talking about last week. Okay. We got Jay Burnham asks, how are they able to measure the carrier frequency or dominant energy coming off the peaks or the four corners? In other words, is it a specific instrument? Yeah, it's called RF. I can show you one easier than I can tell you what it's called, but an RF, it has an antenna sticking off the top. It's an RF meter, and it measures the actual frequency. It'll measure. You can put it by a cell phone. You can tell the frequency of your cell phone. I'm familiar with those instruments. I'm drawing a blank because I used to have one. I don't have it right now, but I had a pretty expensive one actually for a while. And,
you want me to go get one? I'll just take a minute. I can show it to them on the screen if they want me to.
Sure. Why don't you get one? That'll answer their question.
You can answer the question.
I get to answer a question.
And I'll go get that. It says, ask someone if Let's see. Also, someone asked if you can use copper. So you answer that one. I'll be right back.
Well, I think you sort of already answered. You can use copper, but I think I don't know. Some of the books I read, they were really insistent of using organic materials like wood or maybe I've even read that like wool or organic fibers might be a good thing to make your pyramid out of. That might be related to orgone technology there, but I would think that would work. There you go.
Yeah, this is called a frequency counter. I couldn't remember what it was called. It's a frequency counter, and this particular one's made by Radio Shack, so that's where you can get it. That might be a part number right on it. Radio Shack catalog number 22-306. And it's digital readout. It's got an antenna on the top, and this antenna goes up and down. If you're weak signal, you need more antenna. If you're strong signal, you don't. And then there's another one that's called tri-field broadband meter that I could also show if they wanted. But that one will measure the actual watts. This one will measure the frequency, and you can get the exact frequency with it. The other one will tell you how many watts per square centimeter. And then you do the math. If you walk around, you figure out how big the beam is, and you know how much is there per square centimeter. You can actually do the math. And usually, the bigger the pyramid, the more power is coming off of them. But I would guess that Bosnian pyramid has probably tens of thousands of watts coming off of it. So it's a free energy device, been running for thousands of years, still putting out tens of thousands of watts. It's pretty awesome, huh?
That's amazing. Does that frequency counter have a specific range on it? Will it go all the way down to like 0 or something?
This will go down to about 20 hertz pretty accurately, and it'll go up to about I think 10 or 20 gigahertz.
Wow.
3 gigahertz is what it says. Yeah, so it goes down. It says it goes to 0 hertz, but I'm not sure that's right. But I remember reading 20 hertz before with it. So it says it'll go to 0 hertz, but maybe it will. Up to 3 gigahertz. So that's pretty good range. It's an interesting machine. So that answers that. Let's see what else we got. Randy asks, should the outer surface of the pyramid be continuous on its surface, or does 4 triangles arranged in a pyramid shape but not touching each other still work? You want to answer that?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah,
it sounds like the opposite of one made from a wireframe where they don't actually have the corners or something.
Yeah, it's got to be a real pyramid. It needs to be touching. If you want best results, smooth. Actually, the original pyramids of Egypt were built almost perfect. They were perfectly smooth. They had white stones inlaid. Nowadays you see them with steps, but in the year 1300, which is only 700 years ago, before the year 1300, they were perfectly smooth on all 4 sides, and they still even had a gold cap. They call it a capstone, but it was actually a little room up on top where you looked at stars and stuff. It's made gold or copper. It was gold colored. It might have been gold overlaid. And that might be the reason none of those are left anymore. All those top rooms are the first thing that disappears. They might have been making them out of gold, but the white stones were perfectly fit, and they were perfectly smooth. So much so that you couldn't even tell there was a joining them. It was only 50 thousandths of an inch. 50 thousandths of an inch space, and that was filled with a white mortar, and it was extremely strong mortar, and that was the Great Pyramid of Giza. And then there was an earthquake in 1320 or 1350, and it loosened a bunch of those stones, and after that they realized that they could pull them loose. They figured out a technique to pull them loose, and they used them to build other things with, because it's a huge structure, so they had a lot of free stone is what they were thinking, but it did kind of messed up the beauty. It would have been nice to see them when they were in their prime, in their beautiful structures, I'm sure. So smooth is the best on the pyramids, nice and smooth, and nice and smooth is the best. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, you can email me later. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Also, one question in email. Yeah, I do have a question in my email, so somebody's reminding me. Okay, looks like Brother Lidke's reminding me. Let me see if I can still open the email. Oh, it's a comment. Oh yeah, it's a comment from Brother. This is a little different subject, but it's fine. We appreciate it. It's Brother Justice Thunder, which is a really good name. If I had to change my name, I think that'd be a good name. It's a strong name, Justice Thunder. He had cancer last year, and we ministered with him, and he's reporting the victory is what's happening here.
Wow.
He said, "You folks keep up the great work," and he capitalized great work. He says, "I want to let you all know that God is good all the time. He allowed my body to reject the nasty disease of acute myelogenous leukemia." Leukemia is a pretty serious disease.
Wow.
And a lot of people know that. He said, "Man's chemicals, but with the knowledge of God, is how they all got me cured and into remission and cured now. I consider myself cured by the grace of God. I am now, since November 2010, no longer have the most deadly of leukemias. Now cured and have no plan but daily prayer to keep it all away permanently. There is so much more to tell, but I won't bore you with full details just now. But there is one reason here's one reason I have not been in touch for a while. Peace and thank you all." And Brother Justice. So
Wow.
You're welcome, Brother Justice. We're glad you had victory over that, and do call and keep in touch anytime. So that's a good one to share, and thank you, Brother Lidke, for reminding me to share that.
That's an amazing story there. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, God is good. It works in the United States. It works all over the world. Cancers God heals them. That's fantastic. Leukemia is a nasty one. I definitely wouldn't want. I definitely don't want leukemia. Anyway, that's a nasty thing. It's the devil stuff. Anyway, let's see what else we got. Other questions. Does it matter if the base is open or closed? I think as long as if you have a cardboard pyramid and you set it on a flat surface, I think that's fine. If you don't want to close your base, I think it probably doesn't matter a whole lot. That'd be my guess. I don't know. I don't know for sure the answer to that. If you took a mountain and you sculptured it, you wouldn't be able to put a base in there. I can tell you that. So, who knows? It probably would be fine without a base, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I have experimented extensively with these things, but I haven't experimented with that particular aspect of it. Do you know the answer to that, Brother Martin?
No, I don't. That's interesting. And the kind of what's kind of interesting also is that it's a pyramid. It has four sides. It's not three-sided like you might think it make more sense.
Right.
So.
Yeah, four sides. That's the standard shape. There are some on this planet that have five sides, and probably some that have three sides too. But that's not the ideal shape for what we're trying to do. You will get some effect with any cone shape, with flat sides or with all around even. You will still get some effect, but it's not as amplified. The ideal shape is the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's the ideal shape. Unless you don't have to do that size, obviously, but that's the shape. And the bigger you make it, generally the more power the whole thing has, and the more power shoots off the peaks, basically. So that's the advantage of having big pyramids. And I think that takes care of our questions. So thank everybody for joining us on the show, and tune in next week. We may have it may be wind up going on Sunday. We'll try to notify everybody, but it may go on Wednesday. We don't know yet. So it may be already. If you tune in on Wednesday, it may already be up. So you may just have to click on the latest one because we may wind up doing it early. We're trying to accommodate Brother Sam, the PhD on pyramids from the Bosnian dig. He'll be our special guest if everything works out.
I did see on a couple of those pictures BosniaPyramid.com, so maybe people might want to visit there and get more information on those Bosnia pyramids.
Yeah, excellent suggestion. Also, the YouTube videos, if you go type in Bosnian Pyramid on YouTube videos, you'll see some fantastic videos. There's a huge amount of information, probably hundreds of hours of information. It's just awesome stuff.
That's really great. Well, I guess we should wrap the show up then.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and God bless everybody.
Yeah, it's been great. So, 3, 2, 1. We're going to be out of here.